Hey, I'm Dan Pascone, CEO of Tailored Wealth and host of the Making Sense of Your Money podcast, where every conversation is built around one idea. Your money is a tool to design and live your version of a rich life. If you're a revenue leader or an executive who's crushing your number, earning well, and still going to bed asking yourself, is this it? This episode is going to hit because that quiet emptiness isn't a performance problem. It's a design problem. And there is a way through it. Today, I'm joined by Armen Avanessian, a 25-year payments and fintech sales veteran, currently head of sales and partnerships at Anthem, and the author of a brand new book, Selling Senses. We're getting into why the best salespeople don't sell with data, they sell with all five and even the sixth sense, and why healthy fear might be the best litmus test for whether an opportunity is worth chasing, and then what a more intentional approach to money and life actually looks like in practice. Before we get into it, make sure you're subscribed on your favorite platform. And if this show is adding value, I'd really appreciate a quick review. It goes a long way. Thanks very much and enjoy the episode.
Brought to you by Tailored Wealth, helping business leaders live their version of a rich life.
Welcome to another edition of the Making Sense of Your Money podcast, where we cut through the financial noise and help business leaders to make smart, confident money decisions. Excited to have you today, man. This is going to be a fun chat.
Hey, Dan, good morning to you. Happy Friday. Excited to chat with you and the audience.
Likewise. So you and I have chatted a bit before, and I'm excited to allow you to kind of tell your story here to our audience because I think you've got a unique one. Just start off by giving us a little bit of background. What have you done over the course of your career? What's led you to where you're at today? And what do you focus on right now?
Absolutely. Happy to share. Great question. So the journey started about over 25 plus years ago. Been in the payments, banking, and fintech space and it's been that long. I started as a part-time teller while I was in school and slowly but surely working your way up into different positions, service positions, sales positions, and then eventually where I am today in leadership's position. Currently working for Anthem, head of sales and partnerships, looking to launch our offline payments channel sometime here in Q3. So excited to be working on that project. And something really I'm excited to talk about is the book launch that happened in early January for Selling Senses. So officially an author. And excited to share the story about the book as well as the journey.
All right. Well, that's awesome. Congratulations on becoming an author. That's amazing. Tell us a little bit about Selling Senses. So many of the folks in our audience are in some form of sales or sales leadership. I'm a former sales leader myself. So tell us a little bit about, first off, the motivation behind creating Selling Senses. Where did that come from?
Yeah, the motivation. That's deep, to be honest. Yeah, that's a great question. So for me, the actual idea and thought and conviction of the book was there for a long period of time. And I think I shared with you in the past, many of us as leaders from time to time, if not often, struggle with imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. So I kind of really held back on putting the book out there because you thought well, who's going to read it? You're Armen Avanessian, not a well-known author. How many books are you going to sell? So all those kind of thoughts. But then, life hits you, right? You get towards the advanced stages of your career, or you're now into leadership positions and evaluating other components of what your value is. And so for me, part of it is personal. And, we have essentially a family history of dementia. And so my mom, several years ago was diagnosed with dementia and today has late stage dementia, right? Can't speak, doesn't remember us. And so those things start to hit you a little bit harder, right? As a human, you start to understand the frailty of life. Right. And you start to think about, well, what's the impact that I want to leave behind in this world? And so for, I think many people, they strive for legacy. I think we hear that a lot, right? I want to leave a legacy behind. For me, it's a little bit different, and I'm looking to leave behind a testimony, right? I've had a faithful God to me who has given me endless opportunities. So I want to make sure that with this journey and time that I have, not knowing what the future holds, that my testimony, the story of my sales story is shared. And in a fashion that's kind of different than what we're traditionally learning in the secular space. So think of it this way. Selling Senses, in essence, gives the audience a different perspective of sales. So many of the books we read, many of the trainings we've attended, they all have a secular perspective to sales. Data, insights, sales strategies, models. So Selling Senses also looks at the spiritual perspective of sales and how you can mesh those two together to bring the best version of yourself to the prospect, to the client, to the customer. And so that's the essence. It's essentially broken up in three pieces. The first half going through the basic of sales, the middle book diving into the five senses, and then the back half of the book is the spiritual aspect, which we dive into in the sense of spiritual intuition and spiritual intelligence.
Very, very cool. So I know you talk a lot about like this idea of like bringing the census into the sales process and how that kind of changes things. Walk us through what that looks like in a real conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, let me start by saying, think about how we were created. We were truly created to be sensory experiential beings, right?
Right.
So and I tell everyone, you have two eyes. It's intentional. We don't have one eye. You have two ears, two hands, lips, right? And so for that thought process, when you think about us being created as experiential beings, as you're engaging in the sales and prospecting process, you want to do your best to engage all of those senses. And not necessarily, Dan, like a checkbox, like, oh, did I get all of those senses checked off in order for me to secure a deep relationship?
Right.
It's creating an environment where you can engage as many of those senses as possible. So let me give you the example. So for a very long time, I was selling point of sale hardware,
Okay.
merchant service processing to small businesses, right? And as you can imagine, in that environment, you have both inside sales, which is all phone based sales, and then you have your outbound sales team, which is field sales. So in a field sales environment, when you think about it, scheduling an appointment with the small business owner, the first and foremost is getting in front of that person so that they can start to be engaged with their senses and they can see your senses at the same time. And so think of you sitting, and I come to your appointment, it's Dan's shoe store and you're selling shoes. So I come in to sit down with you. And for me, the important part is building a relationship with you. So the initial steps are building trust, building rapport, finding that hinge, that connection. And through that process, you also showed up to the appointment with your demo device. So for example, whatever the hardware may be. So engaging the eyes would be going through your presentation, right? Sharing marketing materials, showing them the device, engaging their hands, putting the device into their hands, listening to your sales presentation, right? And then as you think about the engagement, asking the right questions so that it also is enhancing the experience in terms of the senses. So very much you have the ability, and also think about this. I know people don't even think about this. Your cologne may also emit a sensory effect to that person that you may not even be aware of. That
Yeah.
cologne you're wearing may be that cologne that that person's father wears, and it instantly creates an emotional connection, right?
I've had
So
that happen many times where you're like, yeah, especially with smell, by the way, you smell something or you recognize a smell and it like brings you back to a point in your life, right? Whatever it is, cologne's a good example, right? But you might walk in a store and like it smells like the store. Like when I was in high school, I worked at Staples. Okay. I
oh,
worked at Staples one summer in high school. And anytime I walk into a Staples now, I recognize that same smell and it like brings me back to that summer I worked there in high school.
absolutely. And then another good example is like Tiffany and Company. So went to
Yeah.
New York for the holidays last year and just walking into the store, it was an entire sensory experiences. When you talk about a model for checking off all the five
Yeah.
senses, and I posted it on LinkedIn as well. I mean, even to the scent for that holiday season, they had it
Yeah.
down. So it was a phenomenal experience.
Very, very cool. Very interesting. All right. So that's a really interesting concept. And I've, listen, having been a sales leader, having worked with a number of sales professionals within our business, and studied and followed a lot of folks that, teach various forms of sales strategy and whatnot. I've heard a lot of different strategies, but I've never really heard of like engaging all of the senses. That's a really interesting, unique and take on it. So where do you find, Armin, most sales professionals or leaders go wrong? Like what don't they get that maybe you help to teach within this book?
Yeah. Before I touch on that, I want to reinforce what you were just messaging, right? So just some stats to think about, and you can research these, right? So a lot of the well-known brands, Coca-Cola, Dunkin', all of them that you can think about are very much in the path of multi-sensory experiences. Apple Store,
Mhm.
for example. So brands engaging 3+ senses see significantly higher recall than emotional impact. And then multi-sensory experiences can increase memory retention by 70%. And
Interesting.
then lastly, emotions. Think about this, emotions, because I'm going to answer your question. Emotions. 95% of purchasing decisions happen in the subconscious, emotional, and that's Altman, Professor Altman from Harvard. So to answer your question, I think where we tend to sometimes miss the mark as leadership is focusing too much on data-driven experience. For
Right.
example, the facts, the features, the benefits. Not saying those things are not important. They are naturally, right? People need the data and so forth. But what I'm saying is, as you're going through that motion, it's important to also create that sensory experience. So, for example, if I told you, hey, Dan, sign up with me today and I'll save you 50% on the hardware, would be a lot different than I said, hey, Dan, check out our current promotion. Right now, we have a 50% discount, and I'm putting actually some form of drafted marketing material in front of you that you can visualize rather than just taking the audible cue from coming from my mouth. So it's a combination of now two things, right? I have the marketing material, I'm hitting your visuals, and then also giving you the auditory at the same time. So the idea is data facts definitely matter, but in that process, ensure you're doing your best to maximize leveraging as many of the senses as your prospective customer as possible.
Yeah, that's so interesting because we live in a world where there's more data available to us than there ever has been, right? So do you find that in the work that you do and your career in sales and sales leadership, do you find that like especially recently, like the data may overwhelm the sales process and sort of take away from those sensory aspects that you referenced?
Yeah, absolutely. And so again, data matters. So I want to make sure everyone understands that. So I don't want people to think I ignore the data.
Yeah.
Data matters, but there's something called data kill, right? And so for me, sometimes overloading on the data tends to end up causing maybe more questions or confusion than it does helping. But if you're strategic in the sales process and you're asking key open-ended questions to truly understand like the pain points, to truly understand where the area of opportunity is, then you can refine your questions. And for me, all great questions start with who, what, where, why, and how. And so when you frame it in that context, it's leveraging the right data to support solving the right pain points and not going overboard with the data.
Yeah. Very, very cool. Very cool. This idea of using senses within the sales process, or I could probably even argue that it could be valuable above and beyond the sales process. You probably use this for a lot of the different interactions and
Just in
relationships that
life.
you're having in your life. Is this teachable? And if so, what are like the easy wins that you coach people and maybe some of the thoughts that you share within the book?
Yeah, definitely. In sales, as long as I say you're coachable, you're teachable at the end of the day, right? So, and it's essentially building the framework for each of these core senses that we're speaking about, right? And so for me, the easiest to start with, and I'm being salespeople are probably going to agree with me, the most challenging one is active listening. And that's in my book. And the reason I use the keyword active is because we tend to, as salespeople naturally, and I'm guilty of it, right? We're already thinking about our next question. We're thinking about how we're going to position our product or solution. So start with the active listening. And what I've done to train myself with that is give the person your full attention that's in front of you and ask 2 to 3 key questions. So it's that 20-80 rule for me. Let them speak 80% of the time and you listen, right? At the end of the day. So asking the right questions, ensuring that you're listening clearly. And the way you validate that, Dan, is once they articulate their point to you, you can reemphasize it. Hey, Dan, what I hear you saying, some of the most important things for your business today is how to drive repeat customers and how to drive loyalty from those customers that are coming in. Am I hearing you correctly? Is that what you're looking to solve? And so it's just reinforcing that you're truly listening to what they're saying, because you as my witness, sometimes what we'll do is we'll ask a question, we'll listen, and we'll boom, jump right next to the next question.
Yeah.
Right? So start with active listening. And I think that opens the door for all the other senses.
So let's expand upon that. Active listening makes a lot of sense. The other senses in this virtual world that we're living in,
Yes.
how do you engage the other senses?
Right. So I'll give you an example.
You can't smell my cologne right now, Armen. I'm not wearing any, but you can't smell my cologne right now.
Hold on. No, just kidding. It can be, and remember, I mentioned this early on, right? So it's not about, did I check off all 5? The key is how many can I check off in the circumstance or environment that I'm in.
Okay.
But I'll give you a good example where in a virtual setting, you can still do them all. Okay. So think about Dan just registered for an online cooking class.
Okay.
For that online
Something
cooking,
I definitely need because I have no skill in that area. So that would be a good one for me.
Secret about me, I love cooking. I'm a culinary guru. So think of it this way. You signed up for culinary class.
Okay.
Chef Pierre is going to be your instructor. So Chef Pierre sent you your package full of all the French ingredients. So the first thing that you get is the package to your door, which is already in and of itself an experience, because you're going to unbox and go through an unboxing experience. And you're probably curious about what's in that box.
Right.
So as you unbox that content, think about it. It's fresh ingredients that are sent to you. So you may have the aromas of fresh tomatoes or fresh vegetables, whatever may be the case inside of that French box that emit memories for you, right? You may have had that French dinner with your wife where you proposed to her, for example. And maybe that's why you planned that French dinner. So then you unboxed, and Chef Pierre has a note in there. Hey, Dan, looking forward to our online cooking session, and, personalized to you and excited to meet, and all the details are there. So now you join virtual. And so now you see Chef Pierre. Hello, Dan, thank you for joining my French class today. We are going to cook the pasta, right? So I got your emotions going already, right? So you're laughing, you're smiling, you see me on camera, you hear me. You just got done unboxing all of the fresh ingredients. And then think about it, as we're going through that cooking journey and experience, talking you through what we're doing and what we're cooking together, right? And you're smelling things, you're experiencing things. And so for me, right then and there, and just in a virtual environment, I was able to engage all of your five senses, right? And there can be also a spiritual component to that, right? So meaning that dinner that you're cooking for that with Chef Pierre may be, like I said, for your wife, for your 1 year anniversary. And it brings memories of you and her meeting at church, for example. So I hope that example does justice on how you can engage in a virtual.
I want to shift gears a little bit. I've read some of your content and you talk a little bit about like winning the right business. Tell us, like, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, winning the right business. And that's a great question, right? The right business at the right time, at the right place with the right customer. And I say that to my team all the time. So it's about making sure you understand what your target is first and foremost, right? And so for me, I'll give you the example. In our space, we are focused on small businesses and offering payment services. But we have two core verticals that we're focusing on: auto repair services and personal care service providers, nail salons and spas. So it's really understanding those core verticals. So make sure you study and understand what's important to those verticals. What are the key pain points to those verticals? And what type of businesses within those verticals are you looking for, right? So for example, in the personal care service providers, we shy away from massage places, for example, right? So it's truly understanding and researching the right vertical, right customer, right market, and then tackling the opportunity in terms of prospecting and bringing the deal to the table.
Got it. Makes a lot of sense. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about how some of the work that you've done, the content you've created, this book, can apply to people's finances. Like, how can you use these sensory skills to improve your overall financial well-being?
Yeah, so let's touch on a sense we haven't really dug onto today, right? So there's something in the back of the book that I touch on called the sixth sense. So while we're all familiar with the traditional five senses, I touch on the sixth sense, which is spiritual intuition and spiritual intelligence. So when we think about finances, right? I come from a place where I believe I've been blessed to do what I've been doing to be able to bless others in service of others, right? And so when we think about finances, is making sure that you understand that what you have was put into your hands for the greater good of others, for the purpose of expanding. For me, it's God's kingdom at the end of the day, right? And so for me, it's, am I using the resources that have been provided to me to make wise financial decisions that not only impact myself, my family, but give me an opportunity to help others in not just financial ways, but obviously your question is around financial, but making sure you're also giving back. So for me, it's having a prayerful approach to my finances. And so first and foremost is acknowledging who truly my provider is at the end of the day, right? And that I have, and all of my needs are met because of my provider. And then from that point, it's helped me to use these resources to advance your kingdom and to do good unto others. And so help me to plan, right? And help me to save appropriately and use these funds that will bring you the most glory and honor. So it's, for me, as it relates to finance, and I'm giving you this because I've made a lot of painful financial choices early on in life. And so you have to understand that having God involved with your finances is just as important as you just making your own financial choices and decisions. So whether I've purchased a home, I always approach it in a prayerful manner, right? So if it's not in your will, if this is not the right decision, I'm okay with it. Don't let it happen. I'll take it away from me. I don't need the burden. So for me, it's be mindful of your creator, be mindful that you have the resources for a reason, and then be mindful to have a strategy, whether you're working with someone like Dan, who's an expert on helping you to manage your finances, or because of your experience, you have confidence in doing it yourself, go ahead and do so. But just the painful experience, real quick, because I think it's important for the listeners, right? Two things. One, not saving early enough, right? For me was probably one of my biggest mistakes was understanding, like thinking, oh, I'm young, I'm going to continue to make this good money, start saving early and have a plan for savings. And then the number two lesson, I guess, because you can call me a high risk, high reward kind of guy, I learned the importance of diversification, right? Because what I used to do was, you know, go all in on one opportunity, for example, whether
Sure.
it's one stock or whatever it may be. And now I try to have more of a balanced approach, right? Whether it's a savings, retirement account, a little bit of, crypto, whatever may be the case, it's for me now a more balanced approach, strategic approach, rather than just an all in strategy that I may have attempted in the past that didn't work so successfully.
That's great. Our goal is to help our clients and ultimately our audience through the podcast to design and live their version of a rich life. And that means something different to everyone, frankly. What does your version of a rich life look like today, Armin?
Yeah, it's a good question. For me, at this point, at this stage in my life, a rich life is not money, right? It's definitely not money. It's for me, value. How much value do I bring to the day, not just for myself, but value to the people that I'm interacting with? Like, for example, today, I hope through this podcast, I add value to the listeners and that they
Mhm.
can take away just one thing that can either help them with their finances, sales journey, or their business, right? So I would say that would be the core.
All right, I love it. And then if you would give like a piece of advice to let's be specific about the demographic. Let's talk about a revenue leader since that's where your experience is and my background as well. Advice you'd give to a revenue leader who's crushing their number, doing great, earning well, but sort of quietly wondering like, is this it? Like what advice would you
Man,
give to that person?
wow. Let me tell you, that hits hard. And I'll tell you why, because that's real for me. Let me tell you
Yeah.
what happened to me at Bank of America Merchant Services. So carrying the bag, right, in the street, field sales, payments, making great money. I mean, over six-figure income. Top of my sales team, got awards recognized for it. And then I would go home and I would go to bed and you would think like, man, you're making money. You got a beautiful lady in your life, you got your first property, but I was going to bed like empty. I kept
Yeah.
asking myself, man, is this going to be it? Like, I'm just going to be a salesperson carrying the bag the rest of my life. And is that all this journey is going to be about? Right. And so for me, what I've learned to do is make yourself intentionally uncomfortable, take on opportunities that you're not ready for, and stretch yourself beyond what you think you're really capable of. And I'll tie it together like this. The current role that I'm in today, head of sales. If you ask me transparently, was I ready for the opportunity? I would tell you no.
Interesting.
I would tell you because, I was a sales director and I haven't really led leaders, right? Am I ready for that journey? And I'm going to be straight with you. This has been the toughest role that I've taken on in my 25 plus year career. Probably have a lot more white hair than I started the journey. But let me tell you what, it's been the most rewarding because I've learned so many different things that I thought I knew as a leader that I'm learning now as a leader. And now a 1 year into it, I can tell you that I'm a lot more prepared for that next opportunity, next challenge. And so fearfully, if I'm being honest, I fearfully took this position because I don't like to fail. And I don't think anybody likes to fail. So stretch yourself. And if you have that healthy fear, then it's the right opportunity. If
That's
there
a
is no,
great way to think about it.
if there is no healthy fear, then it's probably not the right opportunity. You're just probably seeking something that's comfortable again.
That's a great litmus test, right? Like, do you have a sense of healthy fear in whatever you're doing in life? Frankly, you could probably apply that lens to any opportunity. If you've got that healthy fear, then you're going to stretch yourself, and if you don't, you may need to consider is it the right opportunity for you?
Yeah. And I'll be honest, Dan, plenty of times, prayerfully, or I'm not ashamed to say these things because this is what makes you human. I
Yeah,
wanted to tap out of this opportunity because I was
interesting.
like, man, this is too much. Or I don't get it, or, but you keep pushing, you keep pushing, you keep fighting, you keep pushing. And here I am a year, 3 months into it. And I'm glad that I pushed when there was plenty of times I wanted to say I'm done. So yeah,
I've been
keep
there, my
pushing.
friend. I've been there. I can totally relate to that. So that's well said. All right, we're gonna change gears a little bit now, and we're gonna officially enter you, Armin, into the making sense of your money lightning round.
Lightning round.
Yeah, exactly. Get ready. So the idea here is just give us the first thought that comes to your mind. All right.
Sounds like a plan.
Let's do it. All right. So this was a no-brainer for me, given what you said is your culinary background. One meal for the rest of your life. What is it, Armin?
Wow, one meal for the rest of my life. It would have to be Mediterranean, Middle Eastern. I have to do it. It's culturally,
Okay.
got to have my kebab and rice.
All right. Good. I love Mediterranean food. That's good. All right. Sounds good. All right. You just wrote a book. Tell us about a book that you've read that's either influenced how you think, how you lead, or how you live your life.
Yeah, I'm going to give a shout out to Jim Blunt, Fanatical Prospecting. That
Good one. Yeah.
book, yeah, that book changed my career path. Let me tell you, and I'll give him his credit. So we definitely embedded sales grading into our Capital One culture there.
Nice.
I believe there's two types of sales. Okay. There's order takers, which means the referral comes to you. And then there's true salespeople, in my opinion, where you're actually prospecting and getting your leads. That book taught me not to be an order taker and how not to be an order taker and how to survive and have a prospecting strategy. And let me tell you, I now embed that into every leadership opportunity that I get. Fanatical prospecting is very much a part of DNA. So think about selling senses is how you connect with someone. And then fanatical prospecting is how you bring those opportunities to the table.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. What's one habit that's had a major impact on your success?
Yeah, that's a good one. So wake up early every morning and first
Mhm.
and foremost, spend time with God.
Okay.
So I have 3 devotional apps or Bible promises apps. So I don't like to start my day until I fed my spirit so I can do my best to bring the best version of myself.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Your bucket list. If you have an item that you've already checked off that
Ooh.
you've taken off the bucket list, and then maybe one other that's still on there that you're either
All
working
right.
towards or thinking about.
Oh, all right. All right. Only because it's my 1 year anniversary today.
All right. Awesome. Happy anniversary.
I've had a lot of titles in my life, right? Godfather, head of sales, dad, all these titles, but I never had husband's title.
Okay.
So we could say that one's checked off.
Good.
Now,
Congrats.
the one that's not checked off yet, I've always dreamed about going to Italy. And
Okay.
so for me, hopefully, obviously, it'll be a honeymoon thing. We want to go eventually to travel the world, but I want to start with Italy. That's on my bucket list.
Very cool. That's a good place to visit. That's for sure. No doubt about it. You get some good. You can scratch that culinary itch there. That's for sure.
People tell me I look at Italian.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. What's one skill that you're intentionally trying to get better at right now?
Man, I said it earlier, and it's always a work in progress, only because we're human. Be better listener at the end of
Okay.
the day. I mean, as much as I preach about it, I still feel that all of us can be more intentional listeners. And I think this world would be a lot better place if many of us intentionally listen.
No doubt about it. All right. Last one. What's one piece of advice you'd give your younger self?
Wow. Don't doubt yourself so much.
Yeah, it's good.
Go for
Powerful.
it.
Go for it. Go for it. You mentioned that you went for it even when it wasn't comfortable for you, and how that's led. So that's great. All right, well, that's amazing, Armin. Lastly, if our listeners want to connect with you, collaborate with you, find your book, where's the best places to find you?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Always my I call it a shameless plug. It's a plug. All right. So selling senses. All right. You can
All
find
right,
it on all the major retailers, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Google Play. So all your traditional places you can find a book, you'll find selling senses. If you want to connect with me, I do have a website, sellingsenses.com. So that's
cool.
www.sellingsenses.com. You can check out the content there. Also buy the book there, as well as drop me a message to connect. And again, appreciate everyone's time for listening. And Dan, appreciate your friendship and the opportunity to speak with you today.
Likewise, my friend. I've really enjoyed it. Really, great stuff. And very enjoyable conversation and great insight. So thanks for coming on. All right, that's it for the episode. As always, you can find our podcast along with our newsletter and YouTube channel at Making Sense of Your Money at makingsenseofyourmoney.com. And as always, prioritize your version of a rich life.